What is good, everybody, and welcome back to the 2024 mock draft. Now, at the end of the regular season, previously you got me maybe 4 or 5 weeks before the end of the season, and now we are finally here. At the end of it, majority of the picks are already set into stone, or majority of the meaningful ones are already set into stone. And starting off with the Chicago Bears in the 2024 draft, a lot of things have been going around. Previously, in a take that I had that wasn't able to go up, I still had the Chicago Bears trading out of that pick. But there's been a lot of rumors circulating in a specific tweet that I saw that the Chicago Bears are very, very high on Caleb Williams, and they could very well go with Caleb Williams and move on from Justin Fields, possibly get a second-round pick out of Justin Fields, maybe even from a team like the Miami Dolphins. Who knows? That's just my bias because, seeing Tua play football is like, I don't know, it's so tedious at times. I can't even think of a analogy right now. But the Bears could be moving on from Justin Fields. It depends on the offensive coordinator that they get because that is something very big that could make a difference. And it depends on if they want to restart with Caleb Williams. It could be a CJ Stroud situation that he comes in and he just starts dealing with the players that he has, like DJ Moore, possibly some other players at wide receiver and things of that nature. But Caleb Williams would restart that contract process and they wouldn't have to trade or pay Justin Fields immediately after getting a new offensive coordinator, as they are keeping their head coach. Now, with all that being said, I'm going to go with what I think is going to happen. And I think they will be moving on from Justin Fields, and Caleb Williams will go to the Chicago Bears. And with all that, yes, he may not be the generational prospect that he was hyped up to be for a very, very long time prior to even this draft, to be honest with you. Even going back to the last draft, I'm not going to talk super deep into Caleb Williams, but we know that he didn't have a great situation at USC in terms of the defense. The defense kind of screwed him at points because he would score a lot of points, but the defense would also give up a lot of points, and that didn't help him in the long run. And ended up not making a push. It just seemed like he got unmotivated because you can only do so much and waste so much energy trying to score points when your defense isn't giving the same energy back. But moving on from Caleb Williams, we are now on to the Washington Commanders, who also could be moving on from their quarterback in Sam Howell. And Drake May is on the board and could be a very viable option. Now, since Ron Rivera is out and is fired as the head coach, he was the one that really wanted Sam Howell to have a chance. And he did draft Sam Howell about a draft or two ago out of North Carolina. And I think another North Carolina quarterback is going to be coming in and taking Sam Howell's place. I think he has more talent. He has more versatility in terms of being able to get out the pocket. He can throw it on the dot and at the exact time that you need him to. If you want him to be that systematic quarterback that throws it at a specific time, at a specific spot, exactly where you need it to that receiver, or be able to figure something out in other capacities. Now, in any other draft, he would have been probably a first overall pick, but being in the Caleb Williams draft, he's going number 2. And that's just how it's probably going to be. He might even go number 1 in all reality. That just depends on if the Bears trade out of it, because I don't think the Bears will go with anybody else but Caleb Williams if they're moving on from Justin Fields. But Drake May, I do have going to the Commanders. Although offensive line is a need now that they're at the second spot, they're not going to be worried about that right now. The Patriots now on the board, who I do think will go quarterback, but they could get some value out of this pick in terms of being able to trade down. Now, how far they trade down is the real question, because how far can you go without giving up that spot of getting somebody like Jaden Daniels that could possibly go to the Giants, even as soon as that, to replace Danny Dimes, to replace Tommy Cutlets, anything like that. So you have to think about that. And I think they would like to trade with somebody like the Chargers, who might want to jump over the Cardinals in a situation of they know the Cardinals are possibly going to be getting Marvin Harrison, and they don't want that to happen. So they're going to do anything in their power to avoid that. Now, in reality, it might be a first and a fourth, maybe a first and a third. I'll do a first and a third right now from the Chargers going to the Patriots. Patriots get some value out of it, going to force the trade. The Chargers move up to the third spot, and I have them taking Marvin Harrison. Now, with Marvin Harrison going to the Chargers, that gives Justin Herbert a weapon that he's been begging for practically for the time that he's been on the team, and now especially after he signed for an extension. Keenan Allen is only getting older, around 32 if I'm not mistaken. His body is not reacting the way it used to in terms of getting hit. You can't risk not having any weapons for Justin Herbert. And if you have that spot at the 5th pick and you have a chance to move up and get such a generational wide receiver, which I think the only prospect that really is going to be generational is going to be Marvin Harrison. I think Caleb Williams is going to be very good. Maybe not Patrick Mahomes like everybody wants to put him out to be. Maybe he will. I hope he proves me wrong. But Marvin Harrison is really the prospect that I'm looking at the most in this draft. And I think he could be very good. And I think giving Justin Herbert that weapon would help him a lot. And then you won't have to feel the stress of re-signing old players or aging players in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And you can focus on the future and focus on a wide receiver that could help you in the long run instead of worrying about cap space in the short run. Now, the Austin Eckler situation is a whole other thing. But with the Cardinals on the clock now, basically being shocked by that, now they're in a spot that they don't know who to really take. Malik Neighbors, very good option. Very good option for them to take. I think he could be good on both sides in terms of being able to get the ball, but also being quick on his feet. But Rome Odunze, on the run that the Washington Huskies had, showed that he could be what DeAndre Hopkins once was for Kyler Murray. Since they are building around Kyler Murray, Rome Odunze has the similar size. And I think with the over-the-shoulder passes that Rome Odunze is used to now, if I'm saying his last name correct, getting those passes from Michael Penix, I think he can get the same from Kyler Murray in some capacity. And if not, Rome Odunze is going to get open. And I think with the shock that they had from Marvin Harrison being drafted there and him being around the same size, I think they would be kind of in the same thoughts of we still want a big wide receiver. And Rome Odunze could be that big wide receiver and still have the same type of talent that you would want for the future of Kyler Murray being the quarterback. So I'm going to have Rome Odunze going to the Arizona Cardinals. Might be a shocker to most. I think that could be a possibility of him going top 5 after the playoff run that they just had. But the New England Patriots now at their spot. Like I said, I will have them going quarterback Jaden Daniels, who can figure it out. He can figure it out. He can be the playmaker, but he can also get it to where he needs to. Being the Heisman winner, he had incredible stats. Has a hell of a deep ball. I think he can just help the Patriots as a whole and really just push the future for them, because if they're going to be moving on from Bill Belichick, they need a different type of culture, and bringing in a young quarterback, even though their offensive line might need more help than anything, I think Jaden Daniels is what they would end up going with. Maybe even Bill Belichick stays and still goes with Jaden Daniels. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if what I had in the last mock draft with the Patriots possibly taking Olu Fashanu could happen again. But the New York Giants are now on the clock. And with a lot of needs that they have, with possibly even getting a quarterback at this position if they really want to reach, or offensive line like Joe Alt, I still think that they'll be taking Malik Neighbors. I think they don't want to risk not being able to get any more weapons, because they always try to wait and then nothing ends up panning out in terms of the receiving options. Their best receiver right now is practically Darius Slayton. And their next one is Jalen Hyatt, who, I mean, he's speedy. He has Odell Beckham Jr.'s number. He could possibly be good. But I think you really need somebody that's going to stand out and possibly be a wide receiver one right away. And I think Malik Neighbors can do that. Out of LSU, a good receiver right there in stats with Marvin Harrison, as much as he did have 10 more receptions than him. But the Titans are now on the clock. And with the draft choice that they had last year with Peter Skoronski, very good draft choice that they had. I was bumfounded by it, to be honest with you. I thought they were going to go tackle. But I'm not opposed that they did that. It's panned out in some capacity, but I think they're going to continue to go that route. Since Malik Neighbors is now off the board, I think they go with another lineman. And that lineman, I think, is going to be Joe Alt, who has been really the prospect tackle that you've wanted over the past couple of years. You've just been waiting for him to come into the draft. And now that he's here, he is a hell of a tackle. Has insane size and can really do it all. He can really do it all, and I think he can definitely figure it out in the Tennessee Titans offensive line, being next to Peter Skoronski or wherever he has to go. I think that he will be comfortable anywhere, but preferably where he already plays. And Joe Alt out of Notre Dame, I'm going to have going to the Titans, as they're going to try to build around Will Levis in some capacity, even though they did fire Mike Vrabel. I think Will Levis will be somebody that they focus on getting him the players that he needs to protect him and also give him the weapons. I think he has a good amount of weapons at the moment. But Joe Alt going to the Tennessee Titans. And next is the Atlanta Falcons, who are right there with the Bears in terms of what to do with defense. But I think since they have the edge over the Bears, I'm going to have them taking Latu. Now, the reason why I'm going to have him taking Latu over players like Dallas Turner and Jared Verse is that you can put him in immediately and he'll be an impact in terms of being ready already. Now, yes, he did medically retire, but I think he can still be very, very good right whenever he gets into that defense, and he can be the edge that they have been looking for, since Grady Jarrett has been really defensive tackle for the majority. I think he excels more on the interior, as much as he is designated, I think, as like a right end. But either way, they need edge help. It always seems to be an issue, since if they do have Grady Jarrett on the edge, he's getting doubled. And Latu will be going to the Atlanta Falcons. And with that, since the Bears just saw Latu go off the board, I think they will go with defensive line still. Although there are players like Nate Wiggins on the board, players like Cooper DeJean, who could be an impact for the Bears off the rip on both sides of run defense and pass defense. I think they're going to go Jerzon Newton with Montez Sweat now playing on the edge. They need help on the defensive interior. And I think adding somebody like him, who could possibly be the best defensive tackle in this draft, and maybe not Jalen Carter level, but just about that echelon, I would think. Like right below. Jerzon Newton not going very far out of Illinois, going to Chicago and helping out that defensive line as much as possible. They paid big bucks for middle linebackers, and they need to focus on that defensive line as much as cornerback might be something that they look at, but I don't think they follow through on it. Now, the Jets could be looking at two different things. They could be looking at Olufushanu, since he's already dropped to this position, or Brock Bowers. And with someone like Aaron Rodgers coming back next year, and how he loves his tight ends and loves using his tight ends like Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tonyan in the recent years, in terms of whenever he was with the Packers. Obviously, Robert Tonyan hasn't had the same career since he hasn't been playing with Aaron Rodgers. But Brock Bowers, I think, could be a hell of a weapon, and a hell of a young weapon alongside Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Yes, tackle might be something that you try to look at, but you have the whole draft to do that, and I don't think you can find another Brock Bowers in this draft. I mean, he can be that receiving option that you're looking for, and I just think Brock Bowers is a hell of a tight end and a hell of a player in general. I mean, I had him going top 5 to start the season. I mean, no, he can't go top 5 anymore. No, he's not going top 5. But I definitely could have him going top 10 If not, he would probably drop to the Bengals. If anything, I just don't think any of these teams would pull the trigger on him. But Brock Bowers, I think I'm going to go with him going to the Jets. Olu Fashanu, with the way that the Jets run the ball with Breece Hall, they want to have a tackle that actually can block on the run. And Fashanu just can't do that right now. And I just can't see them pulling the trigger on that in the slightest. But I'm going to have Brock Bowers going to the Jets, playing with Aaron Rodgers, who's going to help him develop tremendously. Now, with the Minnesota Vikings here, offensive line could be a situation. I mean, anything except for the tackles, really. Fashanu isn't a possibility. They could go Jared Verse or Dallas Turner. They could even go Cooper DeJean. I don't know if they go Cooper DeJean. I don't think defensive back is really a necessity. It's a tough one because they could go edge since they possibly could try to trade Danielle Hunter. But I feel like they should try to focus on the line. And Fuaga, who, yes, may be a little undersized for the tackle position in terms of his arm length, and also just getting off the ball, because you have to be able to get off the ball quick as a tackle and not get beat by the edge rushers. I think Fuaga can be somebody that they can move to the guard position. Very good at blocking on both passing and running. I think he only allowed like 5 QB pressures or something like that. It was a very small number whenever I looked at it. But I would have Fuaga going to the Minnesota Vikings out of Oregon State. I just like him a lot, and I think if they're going to focus on trying to get a new quarterback, they need to have some sort of line or some sort of stability with the line, and they can't be giving no time like they have been for Kirk Cousins. I mean, Kirk Cousins has had some time, but it's just the inconsistency that has been happening. But Fuaga's going to help with that, possibly go to guard, maybe even tackle. But I'm going to have him going to guard if I was the Vikings. And now with the Denver Broncos on the board, Cooper DeJean is here. Fashanu, you don't need. And since the wide receivers are off the board in terms of the ones that would make an impact immediately compared to the receivers that you already have. I mean, if Roma Dunze dropped to this position, even Malik Neighbors, I would have taken for the Broncos, since the Jerry Jeudy situation is a bit unknown since he doesn't like how he's being utilized. Cooper DeJean is a viable option. You have Patrick Surtain at CB1. You're not expecting to draft your next great quarterback. You just need to have some depth at the position. And Cooper DeJean just might be that. Nate Wiggins could also be that. It's between these two. I don't think they go edge, but it is also a very good possibility. Jared Verse, Dallas Turner. I mean, no. I'm going to go Cooper DeJean. I think they could use someone like Cooper to help them in that cornerback room and on the defense in general. So I'm going to have Cooper DeJean going there. Great on the run defense, great on the pass defense, as I've already said. The Raiders now, who only have Nate Hobbs at defensive back in all legitimacy, they usually are relying on veteran cornerbacks out of free agency like Marcus Peters, who got injured, and players like that. You can't always rely on them. You need to figure out what's going to happen with the cornerback room, and I think this is a start for them to really focus on that. Nate Hobbs has been solid for that CB1, but he's not like your standout like Patrick Surtain, as much as he is very good at points. Nate Wiggins could be somebody that can complement him. Now, more on the passing side, has good size, has great speed. Out of Clemson, I liked him when I watched him. I like him a lot for the Raiders, and I could see it happening. I could even see Fashanu, but I really do think that cornerback is more of a necessity than having a tackle. They have good tackles right now. They have I forgot his name. Why am I blanking? It's this white guy. I think it's like Molten or something. I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I just don't see them going for Shanu. Nate Wiggins could be the option that they go with, and I think that is what they're going to go with. Out of Clemson, I don't think that would be a bad pick at all. But I think this is definitely where Fashanu's drop ends. Um, yeah, I'm going to have Fashanu definitely trying to go to the Saints. As much as edge and defensive line in general is a need for the Saints, I think they want to try to get back to having that powerful offensive line that they used to have. You have Ryan Ramczyk. I really do think that you try to go with the tackle. Cameron Jordan's still doing okay. Your defensive line is doing moderately decent. Your offensive line just really needs to give more time. And I think that's what you focus on more. Also, with not even knowing what the Saints quarterback is probably going to be. It might be Russell Wilson at this point. But I'm going to have Fashanu going to the New Orleans Saints out of Penn State. Like I said, not very good on the run blocking, but I think he is a hell of a prospect in terms of his potential and in terms of his size. He just needs to gain a little weight, and I think he can definitely hold his own on that edge. But the Colts, who probably wish that Fashanu dropped to them at this position, are looking to see what they can add now. And since the tackles are off the board that would really make an impact right now, I mean, J.C. Latham would also be a good pick for them. But I think they need to focus on that cornerback room or on the defense in general. Maybe not defensive ends. So Dallas Turner and Jared Verse, probably not very viable options. Terry and Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, both out of Alabama. I like Kool-Aid McKinstry personally for the Colts defense. I think he would fit in, even though they're not really known for going for the size that he has. I think he would help a lot. I think he would. I think he's a tremendous player, although he did drop in rankings over the season. Didn't play to the level that really they expected him to, but he still played very good. Very good for the most part, and I think he would help the Colts and do some good things for them in that cornerback room with all the instability that it seems to have. Kool-Aid McKinstry going to the Colts, helping the future of that team as much as possible with Anthony Richardson at quarterback now. In the Seattle Seahawks, now on the clock, I think Dallas Turner and Jared Verse really have the same type of weaknesses in terms of the run defense, if it is a weakness at all. Jared Verse was just more highly regarded going into the season. But I think they go with more of the for sure in terms of overall ability with Dallas Turner. I mean, yeah, you can't really go wrong with either. But I think they'll go Dallas Turner. You usually would think that they would try to go with like some sort of name that you could recognize. Dallas Turner, yeah, he had a good season and has had a few good seasons. But Jared Verse has always been known as the guy that possibly was going to be top 5, like a Chase Young, but ended up dropping. But I'm going to have them taking Dallas Turner. Very good pick regardless. I think that he will be right there with Jared Verse. And now with the Jaguars, I don't think they go with Jared Verse. As much as he is up here, you have Josh Allen. You have a pretty decent line. I think moving on from the defensive coordinator was a good move just because I don't know what happened at points that they would just fall apart at the end of the season. They were at the top of the AFC and ended up being out of the playoffs by the end of it. So I think you have to bolster that cornerback room as much as possible. Terry and Arnold can do really the same as what Cooper DeJean possibly could. And I think that's kind of what the Jaguars would need. They do have Darius Williams and some very good cornerbacks in that room. Some good safeties as well. Andre Sisco. Yeah, I'm going to go Terry and Arnold. Very talented Alabama class this year. Probably not as talented as usual. And it probably won't be for a while since Nick Saban is retired. So a lot of players are probably going to decommit. A 5-star wide receiver already decommitted today with the news of Nick Saban retiring. So moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that probably wishes that Brock Bowers dropped to them, but he did not in this scenario. And a team that has dealt with offensive line issues for as long as they can remember, since the Joe Burrow dynasty has basically started. Not really a dynasty, just the tenure that he's had. And you got Orlando Brown this past season, who has played well, but you need another tackle. You need another player that can play well. And J.C. Latham is more of the for sure over Amarius Mims, since Amarius Mims is more of the developmental, since he did not play a lot of games this season, but he has insane size. But we'll talk more about that whenever he gets drafted. But I am going to have J.C. Latham getting drafted to the Bengals, although he did get power rushed in these recent games at the end of the season. I think specifically against Michigan. He just, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. He got forklifted into the backfield. And yeah, I'm going to have J.C. Latham going to the Bengals, hopefully figuring out that situation as much as possible. But the Green Bay Packers are probably happy that the Bengals took J.C. Latham over Amarius Mims. But Amarius Mims could very well be the next great Green Bay Packer tackle and help Jordan Love for the future. As much as they could go wide receiver with Brian Thomas, I don't think they go edge. And then there's not really much of any options. You have Cameron Kinchins, but Amarius Mims is more of the best draftable, and also for the position that they would need. And I think that would help them tremendously right now. Like I said, high ankle sprain. Only played 7 games this season. Still is probably going to be in the draft. I think he declared, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Green Bay will take a chance on him and have him possibly develop under David Bakhtiari, even though they might have him play on the opposite side of him. But Amarius Mims going to the Green Bay Packers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who really could use a lot of help in any department, whether it's guard, whether it's center. If Fuaga was still here, I'll probably go with Fuaga for them. Running back, I wouldn't really see as a need. Rachaad White was okay. Tight end, I mean, it's not that deep of a class. There is the tight end from Texas that was pretty good. Sanders, Jatavion Sanders. And then after that, there's a hell of a drop-off. Guard, center, edge, linebacker, cornerback. Cornerback could be a situation that they go with too, but there's just not a lot of top cornerbacks available anymore. After Terry Arnold got off the board, you can't really go with any of these players. And I think they go with what they usually like to, and that is another Florida player. I mean, Florida State, with Jameis Winston that went to the Bucs, there was also another defensive back that came from, I think it was UF, if I'm not mistaken, or if not, FSU again. But I know that Tampa Bay loves to go with these Florida University players. And with someone like Jared Verse, who was already dropped further than expected, and also who was highly ranked prior to the season, and I think could help tremendously in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and could shine in Tampa Bay, really, in terms of being able to be a top player, and loved very much since he is on the younger side, and he'll probably be there for some time that it's probably going to be a struggle, and that's who they'll look at. It's almost like the... why am I blanking on his name? I keep blanking on these players' names, but there was a player that played for the Bucs for some time that the Bucs fans loved, and Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy, hell of a player, played for the Bucs for majority of his career, and the Bucs fans just loved him for being a part of the Bucs. And I think Jared Verse could be that, but also still help the team be as consistent as possible. With his pass rushing being tremendous, run defense needs to be a little better, and I think they could help him with that, since usually the Bucs are good on that side of the play calling. But Jared Verse going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And next we have the Arizona Cardinals via the Houston pick. And although they did go Rome Odunze, so I don't think they'll go wide receiver here at all. Offensive line could be a situation. Defensive line is something that I'm leaning towards. Linebacker, cornerback, just none of those positions there's like stand out at this point. And since Rome Odunze was already taken, you're kind of looking at either offensive line or defensive line. Now, Braylon Trice did play very well for Washington throughout the season, and I think he could play well for the Cardinals. Another edge rusher that's very good on the pass rushing, which is something that the Cardinals lack in. They give almost too much time to quarterbacks at points. And Braylon Trice could stop that trend with being on the edge. And that defensive line just needs help in general. I don't think Chris Braswell can do the same as what Braylon Trice does. I mean, yeah, just not at the level that Braylon Trice has been doing it this season. And I think he can help him a lot more and develop a lot more in that Cardinals defense. And they're just trying to build around Kyler Murray as much as possible. And that means offense and defense. They got the DeAndre Hopkins type player that could be for Kyler Murray if he develops into that. And now they have to look at the opposite side of the ball. And Braylon Trice should fill in very well. I mean, I didn't see him much in the playoff run that they had, but I know that he had a very good season overall. And Braylon Trice going to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Rams could have different situations here. They could go with sticking with Matthew Stafford, who is aging more and more every day, or they go the route that the Packers did, and that is, oh, we think that our quarterback is going to retire in the next year. Let's get the next one so we don't have to have an awkward transition from having a quarterback to not having a quarterback to waiting to that draft to get another one. Chris Braswell could be somebody that I can see them going with in a Sean McVay defensive scheme that he likes to have edge rushers drop back. And with the big guy that he has dropping back at points, it doesn't really make much sense. And Chris Braswell could fill in for that since at points he has done that. But there is Michael Penix still on the board. And although he might drop to the second round if he doesn't get picked by the Rams here, I think the Rams play safe than sorry. And Michael Penix Jr., although he is 23 years old, I think he can play well under Matthew Stafford, and especially with the weapons that they have now with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee is still there. Offensive line is going to need help over the years, but Michael Penix, I think, could play very well with the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, Aaron Donald might be leaving by the end of next year, but I like Michael Penix going to the Los Angeles Rams, being the next quarterback for them. I hope he's not a bust. I'm sensing a little bit of it because he was really good in college. Hopefully it can translate into the NFL, and that's what I'm banking on right now for him going to the Los Angeles Rams. Hell of a player throughout this playoff run that he had some good games, got stifled in that championship game with the offensive line basically breaking down and letting Michigan run all over them on that defensive side towards the end of the game because they practically just gave up. They were in it for a while. Once Michigan scored again, it just seemed like he kept taking shot after shot after shot, even if he was still figuring it out. But moving on from that, still probably should have been Heisman winner, to be honest with you. But moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who could go with a cornerback, could go not center, definitely not center. I don't know why I was even close to saying that, because there's not really much going on in that department at this point. I mean, they can get it later, but definitely not right now. Linebacker, also another one that's, you're not going to go. I mean, Jeremiah Trotter could be something that they go with, but I see Mike Tomlin as a guy that might want to go with somebody that people don't really expect. And with someone like Quinyon Mitchell, who did play for Toledo, but played very, very well coverage with his defense, I think he'll still be able to play good with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Joey Porter Jr. on that defense and the defensive schemes that they run. He doesn't have to focus on being like the man in that defense. He can just play his ball and do what he has to do, whether it's zone or man. I mean, his coverage overall is just great at that. So hopefully it can translate into the NFL. and I'm relying on it. I think he's going to be a very good prospect for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Might be a sleeper for them. And now the Miami Dolphins are now on the board, and I think what's going to hurt them in this playoff run, of course, injuries, but their offensive line. Their offensive line sees too many people come in, and that means really the edge rushers. The tackles are weak at points, and Teron Armstead does what he has to do, but you can only do so much with one tackle being good. And with the spot that they're at here, I would not be against them going with Jordan Morgan. Now, he does have an injury history, but I think he's just a hell of a player. I really like him in the pass blocking, and that really is where they need help. Tua gets sacked a little too much at this point. Yes, whenever the line was healthy, they didn't have to worry about that. And even if everybody comes back and Jordan Morgan's not started, he can just develop under the current tackles. So I think it's a win-win situation for both sides, and it helps the Dolphins with their future of the offensive line. That always seems to be a weakness. Maybe if Laramie Tunsil never got traded, maybe it would be a different situation. But Jordan Morgan, I'm going to have going to the Dolphins. As much as I wish Brock Bowers could go to the Dolphins, as a Dolphins fan, I'm not opposed to Jordan Morgan. He's a top 5 tackle in my opinion. And hopefully, wait, did I just go against my own words? 1, 2. Well, I have Fuaga more as a guard, but sure. Top 5 tackle, top 5 lineman, top 6 lineman, if you want to be specific. But with the Eagles now on the board, I don't think they go wide receiver. Brian Thomas has a bit too similar of a stature as A.J. Thomas in terms of size. Maybe not strength, but just size in general. Linebacker, just not the draft class for it. Defensive back is really more where I'm leaning towards. And Kamari Lassiter does seem very reliable in that aspect, but Kalen King fell off a cliff in terms of just productivity. Maybe he should have declared for the draft last season, because I'm pretty sure that he was supposed to be in the draft last season. Rackstraw, he's the type of cornerback that blitzes, and he's very good at it. He just needs to get better at the pass coverage. But with players like Darius Slay on the team, he could probably figure it out. He could probably learn. James Bradbury has been getting exposed this season. Yeah, I'm not against Ennis going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But I think they're in panic mode in terms of trying to get back the team that they used to have, in terms of just the power and the versatility that they used to have. And I don't know what really happened there. I mean, maybe C.J. Gardner-Johnson going to the Lions hurt them. I don't know. But I'm going to have Ennis Rackstraw going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Kansas City Chiefs now on the clock. And with this, I mean, I really don't see them going with anything else but wide receiver. They already took a chance on a defensive lineman last year. I can't remember. Oh, was it? It wasn't Foskey. It wasn't Isaiah Foskey, was it? It was the guy with, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be pissed whenever I see who it was. 2023 draft picks. I know somebody from a purple college. Felix, yeah, out of Kansas State. Felix Uzoma, who really hasn't been super pivotal on that defensive line. I don't think they take another chance on defensive line. They need to focus on giving Patrick Mahomes weapons for the future. Rashee Rice, good overall wide receiver. They need size now, and Brian Thomas is 6'4", 205. So he could help in that department. And I think they really need to focus on giving Patrick Mahomes weapons for the next 8 years that he's going to be on the contract. 8 years, 9 years, I'm not really 100% sure about the specifications of how many years, but I know he's going to be staying on the Chiefs for probably the rest of his career. And Brian Thomas Jr. is probably going to be right there beside him for maybe half of it if they end up keeping him or not. Texans, wide receiver, tight end, defensive line, and linebacker. Now, they have good wide receivers. I don't think that they should go wide receiver. They signed Dalton Schultz in the last offseason. I don't think they try to go with tight end either. Linebacker, not really an option. So you're left to defensive line. And with the defensive line that they have a pretty good one. They have Will Anderson and Renard at the ends. But maybe you try to go with versatility. And Chris Braswell could very well be that because at points he has been able to drop back and also be able to rush. And I think if you have that type of versatility and a coach like D'Amico Ryans who could be looking at the defense more than anything, I would have either Chris Braswell or JT going to the Texans, but I think they might have a shocker here and go Chris Braswell. I like him in terms of the pass rushing, in terms of being able to do anything for a defense that they need him to. He has the speed, I would think, for what I have seen. And I have him going to the Houston Texans, helping that defense more. And the Detroit Lions are now on the clock. And they really do need as much help as possible on the defensive side in terms of the backfield. CJ Gardner-Johnson missed a lot of time this year. Their cornerbacks suffered a little too much. And I think they need to keep trying to help that as much as possible. And safety is not really where I have them going. Kirby Joseph, CJ Gardner-Johnson should be good there. I think they go cornerback. And really the only one that they can go with at this point is Kamari Lassiter. Kalen King is not reliable. TJ Tampa could be good. I mean, I like Kamari Lassiter a little bit more out of the Georgia defense. Going from one situation of the defense being stellar to one that also is very good. And I think they just need as much help as possible there. Kamari Lassiter going to the Detroit Lions. They might go another cornerback. I'm not 100% sure. I need to do a little bit more in-depth analysis on the cornerback room. I've only been able to get through so many positions, but I will be getting more in-depth into that. And the Buffalo Bills are now on the clock. Now, yes, they might need defensive back if Tre'Davious White might be on the way out, or maybe even retiring, because the injuries just are maybe too much. They may be too much for him. Continuing to get season-ending injuries does something to a player in their mental in terms of just being able to play the defense that they need to. I don't know if they worry about defensive back since they traded for Rasul Douglas, who is playing well. I think they could make another move for a defensive back next year, but I don't think they try to go drafting one. And I think they go more of going the route of replacing Gabe Davis because I don't think they will be re-signing him. And they need to get somebody that can go up and get the ball whenever Josh Allen needs them to. Now, yes, Stephon Diggs usually is able to figure it out if it's a good thrown ball, right on the money. If it's a contested catch, he can probably come down with it. But Keon Coleman can jump over defenders and get the ball. Jordan Travis's right-hand man. Played great at Florida State, has a lot of confidence, and I think he can use it very well in Buffalo. Probably is not going to be very happy about going to Buffalo, but they have a hell of a fan base. They have a hell of a team. And I think adding to that wide receiver room of Stephon Diggs and Khalil Shakir and now Dalton Kincaid at tight end, because I don't think they're going to have Dawson Knox for much longer. Keon Coleman would help them a lot and help Josh Allen a lot as well for years to come. I think they could make a significant push this year. But the Dallas Cowboys at the 30th pick are on the clock. And they could go with several different routes. Blake Corum, I don't think, is a pick that they make right now. Could be later. It could be later. He could be the bell cow for them. Center, not really something that I'm looking at. Defensive interior, probably the most viable option. Linebacker, not really. Cornerback, not a lot going on with that at this point in the first round that they should be trying to reach on. Yeah, I wouldn't go with any of those options. I think they would try to go defensive interior, although Mozzie Smith was drafted last year. Doesn't seem like they have much confidence in him anymore. Leonard Taylor out of could help them in that department. You can't get too deep at that position, or too deep on the lines in general, in defensive line or offensive line. If you can switch out players and have everybody as high energy as possible, that also helps too. But Leonard Taylor III, going from to Dallas, a really from a prestigious program to another prestigious team, like Jimmy Johnson, really. But the San Francisco 49ers now on the clock, and with the very little needs that they have in cornerback and offensive line, like I've already said, not a lot of cornerbacks to be taken right now. I wouldn't risk anything if I'm the 49ers. I mean, they could take developmental players at this point, like a Denzel Burke, Josh Newton, or TJ Tampa. But I think they go more towards what's aging on their team, and that seems to be the offensive line and Trent Williams, and just the offensive line in general. And I think getting somebody like Troy Fautanu, a bit undersized, could possibly even be moved, but I think he could be very good. I don't know where him and his offensive line went in a championship game for Michael Penix, but for the most part, is what I've seen, he did play very well throughout the season. Graham Barton is right there, but I think Troy Fautanu would be what they go with here, with how he was able to help lead the Washington Huskies to the championship in some capacity. And they'll take their chances on him. And at the last pick of the first round, the Ravens really don't need a wide receiver or a cornerback in terms of a first-round pick. They need to focus more on the front seven. And with linebackers not being much of a choice either, I think they go with a defensive lineman. And out of Ohio State, I am going to have JT going to the Ravens. For the most part, they are a younger team, really. I mean, they're not super young, but they're also not super old, unless it's like Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney that basically have re-sparked for like 1 year and probably are not going to be playing on a team next year if the Ravens end up winning the Super Bowl. If that happens, we'll see a lot of things happen in the playoffs in terms of injuries and stuff like that. But I am going to have the Ravens preparing for the future on the edge and not really have to worry about re-signing Jadeveon Clowney and just focus on JT developing for their defense and for the future. And that is going to be my draft. Might be a surprise to some in terms of Rome Odunze going to the Cardinals at the pick that he's at. Brock Bowers going to the Jets instead of Olu Fashanu. I mean, if you have any sort of questions or any sort of questioning my opinion, let me know down in the comments below. I'm more than happy to talk to y'all down in the comments below. I did it on the previous mock draft. I have no issue telling you about my thought process, asking you about yours, and we can chat down below. But while you're down there, please like so more people can see it, so we can get this out to more people, and we can have more people watch for the next mock draft coming out, possibly at the end of the playoffs, because there's not really much of a reason to do another mock draft until the end of the playoffs, since the only things that would be changing are maybe rumors and things like that. So throughout the offseason, there's probably going to be a lot more mock drafts like every week, since there's workouts, there's the combine, there's just different things going on. It's going to be the same draft order, just probably different positions for different players. And I like this draft personally. I have no issue with it. Cooper DeJean becoming the first white cornerback to be drafted in the first round. I mean, I've seen people. I've seen some people say that it's their Jackie Robinson, and that's just so wild. That's so wild to me. But it's just crazy. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe while you're down there so you don't miss out on other mock draft content or other football content, Madden, regular football. I love talking about football. I love talking about sports. So if you have any ideas in terms of mock drafts, in terms of challenges, let me know down in the comments below. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.